All right, everybody, welcome to this week's episode of Soft Elbows. Abby, how are you?
Doing great, Steve.
And as you may have noticed, we have a rather distinguished looking figure in the middle here.
Oh, yeah.
We are joined this week by Jake Rowell of RVA Weightlifting. Jake, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. Looking forward to it.
Guys, we have a lot to talk about. This episode is going to post on Tuesday in advance of the American Open Finals. I will not be there. Abby will not be there, but we're sending Jake as our
I'll
soft
be the
elbows representative.
representation there. Yeah, looking forward to that.
We need like some soft elbows merchandise so that like our representatives in various places, such as Jake, can like go out there. Abby, can you get something made in like 48 hours? Is that a thing you can do?
48 hours is pushing it, but
Very
honestly,
reasonable timeline. Yeah.
if the people wanted to wear soft elbows merch, I can think of so many things I would do with it. So, Steve's mom, if you want some shirts, let me know. Just let me know what you want and I'll make it. But
I think there will always be a market for merchandise that promotes Mike Choi memes and insults to Big Jake. And I'm sure a number of other things.
I'm on board with both of those. Yeah. Happy to wear the shirt whenever it comes out. I'm ready for it.
no spoilers, but I may have something in the works for the Mike Choi meme merch. That to be determined.
Okay.
But spoiler for anyone who is maybe wondering about that. Yeah, there's something. There's something coming. But I don't want to tell you the timeline.
Yeah. I want to hear more about the origin of the Mike Choi memes. Like how did we get there?
Honestly, I am just kind of a troll, and so I forget what the first meme was, but I think I put his face. I think I photoshopped his face on something dumb, or like, what was the first Mike Choi meme? I'm forgetting my own art. But it was like, it was so well received. I was like, the light bulb went off. I was like, I have to keep doing this and I have to keep outdoing it. And so it's just now a weekly staple that at least one of the memes in the carousel is going to be Mike. And he's a good sport.
Yeah. He is a good sport. I was about to say, like, I'm sure he's totally into it.
He's the perfect person for this too. And like, and also he's gotten to the point where like his kids will take goofy pictures of him and he'll just text them to me and be like, here you go, admin.
Helping you out there. That's good.
The clearest form of consent is when your children get involved and they start participating in the joke. That's when you know that you've got the green light, I imagine.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I mean, I gave myself the green light no matter what anyway. And like when I don't have any content, I just scroll his Instagram for a while till I find something good.
All right. Well, perhaps one day soon we'll have Mike back on to defend himself or not. I don't know. At least we'll have him back on to model his own merchandise that we may or may not be making. In the meantime, a couple of things I wanted to get your guys' thoughts on. First, did you guys notice USAW came out with a revitalized club league or a new club league?
Yeah, I saw that.
Make this a new thing or not?
I got to be honest. I saw the email. Have not looked into it yet. So y'all probably know more about it than I do.
I mean, it's a way to make it easier for clubs to like be in the running, I guess, for like it's just trying to generate more competitiveness among clubs at national meets, as opposed to like, individual lifters obviously are going for their personal stuff, but
I think it's a great idea, honestly. So I don't know, Steve, is this in addition to their current like team competition, or is this like in lieu of what they do right now?
My understanding, and I'm reviewing this real quick to make sure that I'm describing this accurately, is that as opposed to like, at AO finals or at nationals where, you enter your folks, you register your team and that those events count for that individual competition. This is now going to be more like a year-long thing where it's like they're describing it as like a rolling leaderboard where you're gaining points from competition to competition, not just within like, so, RVA weightlifting wins, the women's team national title, or that's, I imagine still in play, but also like that would those whatever point system they afford will carry over to whatever AO1, AO2, AO finals. I don't. So that is my understanding. Go ahead.
I think it's great. Yeah. I think that's a cool idea. I mean, I've always been surprised when we've registered our teams in the past. Like, I thought there would be more, and there's like been, I would say, a surprisingly few number of teams. There's usually like a few people. I feel like a few teams at the top really like going for that, like really that top position. But outside of that, not a lot. So I think anything to encourage a little more team participation is great.
I go ahead. I'm sorry, Abby.
No, my thing I like the most about it is that you don't have to pre-select the athletes that you want to be considered in the thing. I think that's going to be a much more accurate representation of how teams are doing. Because like the current system is that you have to, when you register your team for the team comp, you have to declare which, I think it's like 5 athletes, which 5 athletes do you want to be included in your score? And so like, the best example I can give, and I don't want to pump my own tires in any way by using this example, but at the Arnold, we had, when I was with 1440, we had declared 5 athletes, and they didn't declare me as like one of the athletes contributing towards the team points. And I went off at the Arnold. Like that was one of my best meets to date. And if we would have like declared me, I'm pretty sure it was the difference between like 3rd and 2nd place or something like that. And I just, like it was great that we did what we did. But I thought it was like kind of weird that like somebody else pointed out that my points or like my placing wasn't included on like the team sheet. And that's when I found out that like you have to pre-declare like who gets points. And I always thought that was super goofy.
So now the way it will be is if my affiliated club is RVA weightlifting, when I register for whatever events are included in these league category, I believe it's going to include like national university championships, all of the national or semi-national competitions that seems like are going to be in the running. Just me entering with my affiliation to a particular club is going to put my points in that
Contribute
club.
to the club.
That's awesome. Yeah.
I like the idea, but I also think it would be more fun because, like, listen, like RVA weightlifting. You guys are gonna. How many folks you guys sent into AO finals?
We got 3.
3. That's a really good number of lifters. But when you compare that just to the sheer number of lifters that like East Coast Gold is going to send.
Right. Yeah, for sure.
You're going to send like 20 people, probably, maybe more. I don't know.
Yeah.
But like, that to me, your 3 lifters could do incredibly well, PRs across the board, and still, like just by sheer numbers, especially in this new, the way they're going to do it now, where 20 people are going to be going up against 3. It seems unlikely to me they're going to create a scoring system where RVA weightlifting, despite the immense success of those lifters, would be in competition. So here's what I'd like to see. Jake, you got something real quick before I go into my idea?
No, I would just I wish I looked into the scoring system too, because like that's a very good point. But so I'll be curious to see what it actually looks like there.
Here's what I'd like to see. I'd like to see WSOs pitted against one another. So we go around like any national competition, AO finals, because it's the one coming up. And we say, all right, here's everybody from the DMV's WSO. We're going to cherry pick. Each WSO gets X number of lifters to pick. We're back into this picking situation. And we're going to say, here's the best that our WSO has to offer. And we go up against other people's WSOs. In that way, every WSO is going in with the same number of lifters. We've all got the same, it starts off, in my opinion, a little bit fairer. And also I think it makes it more fun from like a regional standpoint. Cause like, if my club sends a lifter to a competition, like I know that my club is not going to win that national award, but if my WSO is like entering folks in, like I'm a little bit more invested, even if it's not necessarily my club. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I mean, it provides some incentive at the WSO level, which, I mean, depending on your own personal feelings about like how much effort you want to put in there, how interested you are in that part of things, I mean, I think it's cool. And I've certainly, you guys have been a lot more active, so that's been great to see. So I think for folks who are invested in the WSO, that'd be some cool incentive there.
Plus, we get to go ahead. I'm sorry, Abby. Go ahead.
I agree with that. I still don't like the cherry picking. I think what if they had like, what if they said beforehand, like, there's 10 slots and like the top 10 from your WSO will score. And like that way it incentivizes, to Jake's point, like promoting the WSO, but also like there's competition within the WSO to like be within that top 10. I don't know. Instead of picking beforehand, because you get the
Abby, as a fellow podcast host, I'm shocked that you don't see the potential for drama here. If we're picking people, then obviously people are going to disagree with who we pick and who we don't. And the drama is what we're here for, Abby. So when we make picks and those picks, some of them will pan out, some of them will not. And either way, we're going to get to blame Brian. And then we got everybody upset because Brian he didn't pick Abby in his top 10, and we would have finished first if not for him not picking you. You know, like this is what I'm here for.
Can you
it's
imagine
good content at the very least, you know?
But can you imagine how uncomfy that board or that committee meeting would be for us if Brian was like, no, we're not sending you, and I'm there sitting in the meeting? I would honestly have to turn my camera off. I might cry in the corner a little bit, be on mute, like just
in all seriousness, I do see the potential for problems to arise because anytime you are picking folks, now we have to enter into the political realm where, like, you know, did Jake pick me because he is my friend, or did Jake pick me because I am actually the best person to represent the WSO?
Right.
I get
it. Did we leave Big Jake off because he's not the best lifter, or because we're that committed to the bit?
And the answer to that either or question is yes.
Love you, Jake.
I just think I like the idea, circling back to the original point. I like the idea of the club league. I think that it could be, I think there's a way to make it more inclusive especially for the smaller clubs who try as they might are just never going to be in it from a team standpoint, just by sheer size, not through any sort of lack of talent or coaching ability or anything else.
Yeah. I mean, I need to go be a responsible club owner now and like look into this a little bit more. So
I mean, your club's doing just fine, Jake. Like you've got some good lifters. I don't think you're being an irresponsible club owner.
I appreciate that. Yes, thank you.
Abby, what poll question are we discussing this week?
You know, I want to talk about shoes. Everyone wanted to talk about shoes. By and large, this was like I think I talked about last week that we had like our highest poll participation. We blew that out of the water. We had like over 100 people had an opinion on their shoes. You've got the Asics crew that are just always, they're so vocal about how their Asics are just better. And like those people are something else. Big Jake was really upset about my choice of shoe, which for anyone who didn't see the poll, I do wear the Under Armour lifters. I think
didn't even know that was a thing.
Didn't know Under Armour was still a company, honestly.
Yeah.
That was just mean. Under Armour is a Baltimore staple, and I will not stand the slander.
What an indictment on Baltimore. Yikes. Continue, please. I'm sorry I interrupted your shoe.
I don't remember where I was going with that, but Big Jake was very upset about my Under Armour lifters. They're a great shoe. I don't have many complaints. There were a lot of people. Some of the write-ins that I thought were interesting. Somebody, I don't know if you've ever heard of the Ristos. Somebody wears Ristos. They're like, those are like so hipster. I'm pretty sure they're handmade. Like I don't remember what material they are. They remind me of the Asics, but like but they look more like the old Adidas Ironworks is what I think they look like.
And those have been out for a while. Like I didn't even know they were still getting made, but I remember like maybe 10-ish years ago they were like a thing if you really wanted to spend some money on your shoes.
Yeah. You know, one thing I don't understand, and I was very vocal about this when I was sharing responses to the poll, I don't understand the appeal of the wide toe box. I don't. Like Tier has made their entire brand of weightlifting shoe based on, we have a wide toe box, and now they've got like the very Adidas-esque looking shoe that sells for $300, which is crazy. But like I don't understand. Do either of you like? Can you explain this to me? Do either of you have these toe concerns?
I mean, I I haven't gone down like the squat university rabbit hole there. Like I know he's really into toes and feet. But I mean, I will say it's like you're not spending that much time in your shoes. Like even if you're lifting all the time, it's like I could see if you're wearing shoes all the time, they're really like constricting your feet and uncomfortable. But like I don't know, man. I'm not that worried about it with my lifters. I mean, I will say the tiers are probably the second most popular shoe for my lifters, where with the Romaleo 2s being in the lead. But people seem to like them. They seem like they're well made shoes. But I think it's an
Yeah.
interesting, their niche is very unique. They're all about the feet.
They are, and so I actually, I wear tiers,
Okay.
and I am at the stage of my career where I'm like, do they help me lift better? Probably not. I'm the same barely mediocre lifter now that I was when I was wearing Adidas or Nike or any other shoe brand. I don't believe that it's the shoe that's impacting my ability to remain mediocre. But I will say that from the time that I started weightlifting in general until the point where I started wearing tiers, I have noticed a change in the shape of my feet. And like, that could be due to any number of things. I'm not suggesting that it's just weightlifting that has mangled my toes. But it was at least noticeable enough that when someone comes to me and says, and I believe there's some merit to this, like your feet aren't supposed to look, like this. So if someone says I can give you a wider toe box and that would be better for you health-wise overall, like that's fine for me because I'm not out there trying to make national teams and international teams and like go for records and stuff. So like I'm lifting because I enjoy lifting. And so if I can do the thing that I love doing while being, in a healthier, situation for me long term, I will do that. Now I do think like the new one of the lifters at the gym I train at was talking to me about the new tiers that are, you mentioned, Abby, are like $300 or something, and they've got some like steel reinforced magnum plate that's gonna, like, I don't know, supercharge your feet and make you stronger or something. I think that's a little ridiculous, but good for them for marketing and for selling shoes, and like that's their job. Yeah. In general, the original tier is fine for me because, again, like I'm not here for performance at this particular point in my lifting career, but I can understand and the popularity of the shoe and of the concept in general of the wide toe box.
Sure. Yeah, that was I got a really good response actually from Scott Gonzalez, the guy that does the all the technology at the meets. For everyone who doesn't know who Scott is, I'm sure you've seen him. He was saying that like he had an accident, a few years back, and so like the tier is the shoe that he can wear, like that actually allows him to weightlift because of the accident that he had been in. And so I thought that was an interesting point. So to Steve's point, like I can understand the health anomalies, that need it, and you want to still do weightlifting. But for the most part, I think it's a load of BS, for majority of the population. And then who was there was another story I wanted to talk about.
Wait, real quick, Abby, I'm curious. You think that from a health standpoint, it's a load of BS, or from a performance standpoint, it's a load of BS?
Oh, from a performance standpoint,
Okay. Right.
total BS, total BS.
Okay.
Yeah. If that were the case, then like, these old school lifters, like I think would laugh in our faces. Like try to tell Anatoly Pisarenko that he needs a wide toe box to move a lot of weight. That guy would like laugh in your face,
but like,
and then go
but
and
that
then
guy
go squat
also,
a truck in underwear.
that guy was also taking drags off a cigarette in between his snatch attempts. So like I don't think that anybody is going to say like that's the optimal way to lift, Like,
okay, but maybe he's onto something with that. Maybe we're missing out, Steve.
But more smoking, is that like what we're missing out on? Yeah.
Yeah.
We've got a really interesting brand here at Soft Elbows. We are a pro smoking in between your lips.
We got bought out by Big Tobacco here. It's a sponsorship.
Go
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
The other thing I wanted to touch on before we stop talking about feet. Someone else, they phoned in and they were talking about how they have a shoe for these days and then a shoe for these days, and then when they compete they wear these shoes. No. Nope. Do not. I can't stand when people do that. I know somebody else who has like 8 pairs of shoes and he like alternates them for days and stuff. And like, I just think it's the goofiest thing. And also I think it's detrimental to that I think will have an effect on your performance. I think the people that change the shoes, specifically like if the heel heights are different even by a little bit, I think that's going to throw off your pull. It's going to throw off your tech. Like, and in general, I just don't think that's a good strategy to have. But
I honestly haven't even seen that. Like I have 2 pairs of
Really?
shoes. I usually lift in. I have some Rowell 2s I've had for at least 10 years. And then occasionally, do y'all remember when Innovate had some shoes? Yeah.
Yes.
They're just comfortable and like whatever, every once in a while I'll throw them on. But yeah, it's definitely a very different feeling. I will say I did or do have a lifter, and she would buy a new pair of Rowell 2s roughly basically at the start of every new cycle. It just because she liked to collect shoes and like got different colorway each time, but it was Rowell 2s, just same size, everything. So but we always got a big kick out of that when she'd come in with some like she had to hunt them down on like Poshmark or whatever. I mean they're like $300 now. I mean it's wild, but
yeah, damn, she got money like that.
Yeah.
Well, that was going to be my comment to whoever you're referring to who changes their shoe based on what day of the week it is. Like, I don't know if that's a good idea or not, but I certainly admire and am envious of the financial flexibility that would be necessary to do that. That's got to be cool,
Some people's shoe collections I see are ridiculous. Like if you go on Reddit, I'm not on Reddit anymore, but if you were to go on any given point, someone will post like their shoe collection, and it's like. First of all, where do you find those shoes? And second, like how much money have you spent on those? Like they'll have like a whole spread. It's crazy. Anyway, I'm done talking about feet and shoes.
Are people still into the 2008 Stars? Do y'all remember those?
Big time.
God, I'm actually all right. I'm looking it up on eBay right now. There's a pair for sale for $875. So it's like it's good to know that those are still holding strong in the collector's eyes. That's
crazy.
I had a coach who had them right when they came out. I thought they were the ugliest shoes. Like maybe it's just because I was there when they came out, but it's like now I'm like I don't know why you would want them. But I mean that's just me.
But
fanboys.
I feel this way. The idea of collecting, like whether it's weightlifting shoes or like trading cards or like some person apparently they wouldn't set the market at $800. What did you say? $875? Is that what you said?
Yeah, I'm looking at like Hook Grip has some for sale for $1,100. I mean, like, people are paying for them though.
That's my
point. Like they wouldn't set the market there if somebody wasn't willing to bid that. And I guess, I mean, again, if you've got the financial means, good for you, man. Like I'm not going to tell you how to live your life, but like. Then, so you own those shoes, and then what? Are you lifting in the shoes that you paid $1,100 for? I can't imagine that you are. So, are you like storing them in like a hyperbaric chamber to make sure that like the air doesn't like deteriorate the material over time? And then, like 20 years from now, do we think that they're going to be like? What do you do with them in 20 years? Do you bury them in a time capsule? I don't know.
I mean, I guess they appreciate in value, and that's what I tell myself when I buy Taylor Swift merch. She said she didn't say yes or no to being on the podcast, by the way, Steve. For anyone who doesn't know, I went and saw Taylor Swift last weekend, and it was amazing. But she did wave in my general direction, so I'm taking that as
it's definitely right at you. Yeah,
waved at you and tens of thousands of other people, but it was she definitely.
But it was in my general direction.
Sure.
Yep.
No, that's
I've got a video.
Jake, how many Taylor Swift concerts have you been to?
I can't say that I've had the privilege of going to one, so I'm really missing out, though.
I wonder what brand of lifters do we think Taylor Swift wears?
Taylor, oh, that's a good one because it depends. I bet. Okay, so I think this is probably going to surprise you guys. I'm actually going with. I bet she's a shoe collector and she wears a different one for every era that she's in.
There you go.
Yeah. If someone's got the financial means to do it, it would certainly be her.
It would be Taylor. Yeah.
Guys, I don't want to be too daring. Should we move off the topic of feet?
Please.
Yeah, we've covered it thoroughly. Yeah.
Let's talk AO finals. Jake, just can you give everybody a quick rundown? You run RVA weightlifting. You have done that for many years, but just give people a sense of who you are and your club, and then we'll kind of branch off from there.
Yeah, so I have been coaching weightlifting since 2008. I opened up a CrossFit gym in 2007. I think it was 20. I was 22. Got started early with it all. From there, that was my introduction to the Olympic lifts. I mean, very quickly, I was getting into it. Took someone to a meet a year later in 2008. I will say my first meet ever that I took folks to was it was a combination bodybuilding show and weightlifting meet, and this was down in Hampton. It was a unique experience, but
which of those events did you enter into? Not as a coach.
I was just coaching, just weightlifting. Never really. I know I'm huge, but no bodybuilding for me. But I mean, that was, CrossFit was my introduction to the lifts. I very quickly realized that, I don't know if y'all know this, Kane Wilkes used to live down in Chesapeake. He grew up there. So I got to know him and his dad and his family, and they were the first people I really learned from in person as far as, understanding the movements in a little more depth. I got to, the first place I really trained here in town was a place called the Weight Room, and the owner and coach there is Chris Lawyer, he's been around the meets and stuff. Y'all have probably seen him at some point. So that was kind of my introduction to lifting. I mean, fast forward now, Chris and I have a joint team, RVA Weightlifting, which is between our two gyms. Been going to the national meets pretty consistently since I think 2015, where we started to get some folks that were competing at that level. So yeah,
and not just competing at that level. You guys have had a number of very successful lifters, and please correct me if I'm wrong. To my knowledge, the most decorated, if you will, lifter that you guys had is Jackie Long, or now Jackie Alberts, who was the two-time national champion in 2017 and 2021. Is that right?
And good, you've you got your facts down. My
biggest fear is that I was going to say she's a two-time national champion. You were like, actually, she won it 3 times. You hacked.
No, I mean, two-time national champion there.
She also holds DMV records right now, I think, in the 71s and the 76s and maybe the 64s. I know it's the 71s because that's my weight class, but I know she's in multiple.
Yeah, she bounced around between 64 and 71 pretty often. Jackie competed with us for a long time. She retired about a year ago. And then now we have, in terms of decorated, Caleb Goodman is, he's doing well. He'll be competing next week. So great lifters. And then we've had several other folks who've, competed at that same level, as far as, like going to nationals, AO finals and all that. So, yeah.
And in the, last decade-ish that you preparing athletes and sending athletes to national meets, do you have, any wisdom or guidance or advice you want to share? I imagine that, the run up to a meet for any athlete is challenging. You've got anxiety, or maybe you're trying to cut weight, maybe you're trying to qualify for something, but I imagine it's a little bit different preparing an athlete for a national meet such as AO finals. You've been through this several times. What are kind of have you developed any lessons learned, tips, tricks, whatever in these last couple of weeks in the run up to a meet such as AO finals, a bigger meet like that?
Yeah, my perspective over the years certainly changed quite a bit. So Jackie was the first lifter that I had, get up to consistently competing at that level. And I'd worked with her from the first time she touched a barbell essentially through the end of her career. And so it was a big learning experience for me because, again, I just never had someone at that level. So it was good, but provided a lot of lessons learned. I'll say one of the biggest things was really how weightlifting can be this very serious endeavor, and it can kind of be this all-consuming thing as well. And I will say, like, for Jackie and I mean, she was more successful when we almost could take a step back and be like, oh, there is a little more to life than weightlifting. And honestly would perform better at that point too. I know early on there was all this pressure in terms of like exactly, what lift she was going to be going for and all like our expectations and things. And, by the end, even some of the times when she, again, did her absolute best, we were, went from being very serious about everything, and to just being like, hey, we're happy to be here. It's a privilege every time you get to step on a national stage. It's a privilege for me every time I get to coach someone, locally, nationally, internationally, whatever it might be. So that perspective helped a lot. And I really have noticed that, it's easy to go down that rabbit hole with your lifters where you're just so worked up about every part of the process. But then, you take a step back and you're like, hey, this is for most of us a hobby, even at the higher levels, and we're here to have weightlifting enrich and support and add to our lives. It shouldn't be something that's taking away from it. So, that'd be kind of my biggest thing. Is like take it seriously, but maybe don't take yourself too seriously in relation to weightlifting.
Okay. And when I imagine for many lifters and coaches, I feel like it's a little bit different of a situation because you have kind of that bird's eye view, and it's not just one lifter that you're working with. You're working with a multitude of lifters who have different personalities, different skill sets, different experience levels. So that it might be a little bit easier on the coach to have that mindset. For an athlete, I can imagine, and I've been through this, where like you tell yourself, all right, this isn't like the be all end all. Like I've put a lot of work into this. I'm going to give this everything I have, but I'm not going to get too wrapped around the axle. And then you get there and you're like, wait a minute, this is it. This is it. I got to do it. Like, what is it like, or has it been like for you as a coach on the ground? Like once you guys touch down in Tucson, Colorado Springs, Orlando, wherever the meet is, and now like everything's getting really real. Any guidance on how to kind of just keep everybody at a even keel?
Well, first I'll say, like, very much to your point, I'll say this with lifters pretty routinely, like I have the benefit of seeing so many athletes go through, their whole like weightlifting athlete journey. So, I do have the benefit of like, while they're only just seeing themselves in a particular situation, I can be like, hey, like, I know where you're at right now. It's like, and kind of provide some context there. So I will say that's like a big part of the role of coaching isn't so much like, the programming and all that. Is really just being able to have those conversations with people, help them through those kind of challenging times. From the weightlifter's perspective, or like, when you get down there, my thing is, again, like, every lifter is so different. So part of it too is just like knowing what that lifter needs, whether, for some people it might be, having a game plan and having very specific expectations. For some people, it might be having no expectations. And I do think it takes a while too. Like, each of my athletes are very different. And so it's so hard to say one specific thing. I will say though, like, I too tend to lean towards just being myself, like as a coach, being very calm and being just very stable at all times. Some coaches are going to be hyping their athletes up, and unless someone's like, hey, I need you to do this thing for me, I'm usually going to be like, hey, we're like we're chilling, we're having a good time. We're going to lift some really big weights today. Most of my athletes, I'll say, like, are already getting themselves tuned up. They're like, they don't need any help getting more hyped up. So usually it's more like I am working with them to like say a stupid joke or just like run my mouth or just get them to like almost not think about something different, but just, you know, ease back a little bit. And I find most people that's what they need. So I don't know. It's definitely not what I expected before I started coaching. I thought my role would be really to like come in with a game plan and we're going to take this so seriously and we're going to be, I'm going to hype you up and you're going to get this done. And it's, it hasn't turned out like that, but it's been a really good learning experience all the same.
Great. And with you said you've got 3 folks going to Tucson.
Yes.
Now's your chance. Now's your chance to pump them up a little bit. Like, tell us about these folks. What are we going for? Who are they?
So we have 3 athletes. We have Carly Winston, Keisha White, Caleb Goodman. All 3 of them have been with me for a long time. I mean, honestly, they're all looking great. Their lifting's going well. Keisha was at the
DMV. She brought the house down, dude.
Yeah,
she kicked
and
ass.
She had a fantastic meet. I'll say, kind of to my point from earlier, like she went into that meet with very little expectations and really exceeded everything she'd been doing in training, which is, I mean, such an awesome part of weightlifting. You can, it's what makes it, to me, it's more than just like, hey, we're lifting weights, hanging out in the gym. It's like, oh no, like, you're doing these things, but you can show up on the platform and, I mean, on your best day, greatly exceed anything you've been doing. And your worst day, do way worse. That's part of what makes it a sport. And there's some excitement and some reward there. So very much looking forward to her competing. Carly, again, she's been with us for a while. She's from Charlottesville. She's like semi-remote. She comes down to RVA once a week. All her lifting is looking great. I think she's set up for some PRs. Caleb took a good while off for some work training, and he's really getting his feet back under him. And I mean, he's a young kid, so I'm still just I think he's got a lot of lifting ahead of him, and he's moving well. So I think it's gonna be exciting. Yeah.
He was on the Rogue stage at the Arnold a couple of years ago, wasn't he? In 22? Yeah. I remember seeing him lift. He was really, really strong. I'm glad to see him back.
Yeah, he is very strong. And yeah, he's again, he's moving well. And it's just always interesting to see too, especially when you have folks kind of towards the top of their weight class. It's you get to the end of a quad and you're like, well, who's still here? Who's hanging out? What's like the next group of lifters coming in? So I think it's a little bit of like it's just an interesting time right now. So certainly our hope for him is to, he's competed a couple of times internationally. Like we went to Cuba and Switzerland over the past couple of years, both great trips, but would love to see him at like a Pan Ams or Worlds at some point.
When you have a lifter like Caleb who they competed at like, in the 1%, like not everyone is going to make an international competition. I would say he's the 1% of the 1%, and the next 1% being those at Worlds and Pan Ams, which, it's cool that that's his goal. When you have somebody who has to take time off because life happens, your career demands something, maybe you have a baby, whatever. What is that mental process and what is your role as a coach, like helping him through that mental process of coming back and seeing if he can be in the top 1% of the 1% of the 1% now after taking time off?
I mean, I think it's a couple things. I mean, kind of recurring theme here, but it's like acknowledging like and having good understanding of like where weightlifting fits into your life. And I mean, I know that's something, I mean, especially like elite athletes struggle with pretty openly. So I would say for him, it's like, he works a full-time job. I mean, it thankfully allows him to lift, but it's also like, well, how much time do you really and energy do you really have to put into this? And setting expectations around there too. So fortunately, like he did have to take some time off. He was able to lift some, but as he was getting back into it, it's really like, all right, well, um, not jumping back in too quickly and giving yourself some breathing room too. Like you're not going to immediately lift exactly how you did before. Um, and then really looking like, again, we're all more than weightlifting athletes, so it's like, well, hey, like even if you're not exactly the lifter you were before, you're at a different point in your life, like, well, it's fine. Like it's you can come to terms with that sort of on a personal level. And I think that's the way you're going to be the most successful as well. If you're coming into the gym every single day frustrated because you're not immediately hitting the lifts you used to be, like you're gonna lift worse. So it's really, I think, setting those expectations and again, like having a clear view for yourself, like where does weightlifting fit into my life? Like, what am I beyond a weightlifter? And just kind of putting all those pieces together.
Cool.
And once American Open Finals is over, whereas many coaches and lifters kind of take a period where they take a break, you guys, just based on how the local weightlifting calendar scene works out, you guys got to dive right back. Well, I assume it's already in motion, but you guys got to dive right back in and prepare for the RVA Open, which is January 18th. Is that right?
Yeah, you got it.
You guys have been running this meet for as long as I've been lifting. It's got to be close to 10 years now, yeah?
Well, over 10 years. I want to say, gosh, I always forget. I try to look back. I think the first one I ran was the Old Dominion Classic. I think that was 2010. I want to say the next year we did the RVA Open. But either way, it's been over 10 years at this point. So, yeah.
So, and RVA, the RVA Open, so it was the Old Dominion Classic. It's now the RVA Open. Is that right? Did I get that?
So we have two meets. Yeah, so we've been running two meets for.
That's the summer one.
Yeah, so we have, at this point at the weight room, we run the Old Dominion Classic. Okay. And then in the winter, we run the RVA Open at my place.
Was there, January is an interesting time to host a weightlifting meet, especially because for most people, their season has just ended. Was there any rhyme or reason for you guys picking that time period? It's now become a staple of the local weightlifting area. I'm just curious kind of the origin story behind it.
Yeah, for us, I mean, again, we did have two meets, so spacing those out well. East Coast Gold does also more like a spring and fall thing. We're here summer, winter. But I mean, kind of getting down to like how many folks, especially at the local level, really are going to AO finals. It's a small number. I mean, most of our people who are competing at like the RVA Open aren't at that level, which is great. Like I want to provide like a really good meet for them to compete at. I will say, when we were running these meets, started running them, I mean, the AO series wasn't around yet. So there wasn't that sort of like intermediate step. So yeah, it was just, I mean, and honestly worked out well for most local lifters. And I mean, we're still getting good signups and having a good time with it. So, I mean, for us, it's just, we're happy to run a nice smooth meet that's on time and works well. And that's gives our, my lifters an easy opportunity to compete too. So.
As a veteran meet director and as someone who was at the DMV championships this past fall, can you give us some critique, some feedback? Just prefacing this, anything that you had problems with was Brian's fault, and anything that went well, obviously, was Abby and I. So
that's all very reasonable.
Tell us what your feedback was.
No, it was great. I actually emailed Brian just a day or two after the meet and told him it was a great time. There was, I mean, for y'all, like, what kind of, it was great. Like, what kind of meet experience have y'all had in terms of running meets in the past, like before this particular one?
I mean, Abby, go ahead. Do you want to go? You want to start, Abby?
Yeah. So I definitely am more of a lifting forward kind of gal. And like kind of the extent of my meet organization has just been kind of helping out day of. I don't do, or I've not done a ton leading up. My old coach Mario Dispenza did the Baltimore Open every year, and like there was like we would talk about ideas and stuff, but like I was never involved in that kind of planning. It was more so just what can I do to help him out, you know, the week leading up, the weekend of, does he need me to go places and get things? Like I was a thing getter, you know, that was kind of my role, kind of fill in where needed. But yeah, that's the extent of my planage.
Well, I thought y'all did awesome. I mean, I'll say one thing that like I look back at the first meets I ever ran. They're with Chris Wilkes, so that was, Kane Wilkes' dad, and man, they were bad. Like they were real bad. I mean, like I was very new to the sport, and I mean, I guess it was just good because I guess wasn't worried too much about them being bad, or didn't even know enough to at that time know how bad they were. But like I think for the first few meets, I don't even think we had a clock. Like we're just kind of like, it's your turn to go. You know what I mean? Like we had a lifter order, we had cards and everything, and I'm like, oh, like we really like, why didn't we have a clock? Like, and so it's funny to think, I mean, that's a low bar, like,
Great.
it was chill.
It
It
would
was
have
like
been
20.
nice to have more than 2 minutes before I tried 111 at DMV's.
Yeah, it was very much like, hey, you look tired. Like, here's a few more seconds,
I love
and
that.
so, but like pretty quickly, it's like, oh, like it was. I'll say it was the repetition though of like running meet after meet and just kind of iterating on it. That's what I mean. I'm very proud of the meets we run now, just in terms of being, um, not like they're not huge. They're like, but they're very consistent. Like people know what they're going to get from them. They're going to go well. So, but we only got there just by running them over and over. So y'all just coming out running like a smooth meet, I think is great. I only had good things for Bryant when I gave him my feedback. So I think it was a good time. So
and we will take all the compliments we can get.
yes.
I will say that the advantage that we had that you and I imagine many other meet directors don't have is we had, whereas you have, well, I guess in your case maybe one or two, because I know you and you've got several folks that you kind of run the meets with, but we were able to divide the pre-meet labor up between 8 people. So a little bit easier of a lift for us just because we had a whole board of folks. Like we can, it wasn't 1 or 2 people having all of the tasks leading up to it, but just the same. You mentioned, I'm gonna add some to what you just described. You guys always run incredibly well run meets. They are always on time, and there's a difference between showing up to a weightlifting meet that was hosted and one that was hosted in a very like professional way. And your meets are always clearly that. And that leads me to the next thing I wanted to talk about, which is your involvement with Lift PD.
Okay.
This, for anyone who doesn't know, this is a nonprofit organization in the Richmond area to benefit people with Parkinson's. Jake, you can speak more to this than I can. Please tell us a little bit about this organization you started.
Yeah, so Lift PD started. We had one of our members was a physical therapist working out of VCU. He worked in their neurology department and very specifically with folks with Parkinson's disease. And there had been some research around high intensity exercise, helping not just with improving symptoms, but also disease progression for folks with Parkinson's disease. So he applied for a grant through the Parkinson's Foundation to start an exercise program. And once he got the grant, he came to us and was basically like, I want to pay you to like through this grant to run this program. I had no experience with working with folks with Parkinson's. None of my coaches did either. But they were very like, myself and a group of coaches were really like kind of jumped, straight into that in terms of learning how to do this. So we applied, a lot of the principles that we have used through sort of like the just general CrossFit, like strength and conditioning world to training this, very different population than we're used to. And it just went really well. So after that grant, it was for a limited period of time. And when that was over, we decided to start our own nonprofit. keep running the classes. And we've been doing that ever since. So at this point, we have it's like every single week people can come, and I'll say like what we are delivering really is group classes for at 3 different sort of levels of disease progression. They're free. So, I mean, all you have to do is basically submit an application, and we have a wait list, but when we get you off the list, like, you get to come to classes for free. So yeah, it works great. I mean, it's again, nothing that it's just kind of by chance that we wound up here, but I love that my gym and my team's a part of it. Steve, I know you did the lift off.
I did. I was going to bring that up. Yeah.
Yeah. So we, when it came time, like, we were done with the grant. So really at that point we had to keep things going. And it costs a good bit of money, because it's a lot and the biggest expense really is just our coaching fees. So we have, like, all of our coaches are paid. We do have volunteers as well, but like, we have coaches every single class, and we do need to maintain, like, sometimes like 1-to-1, 2-to-1 kind of like athlete to coach ratio. So it's a lot of coaching going on. So yeah, we have to have the money for that. So we, for me, it was finding a way to integrate my interest in the community I'm involved with the nonprofit. So we started the Lift Off. So we've done it 2 years now. It's gone great so far, and that is a 1 rep max clean competition, but really it's following typical, like, IWF rule sets as far as like how a meet is run, other than the fact that it's just cleans. So yeah, we have a platform and everything works basically the same. But yeah, so lifters come in, each of them raises money. They have their own donation pages based off either like getting flat donations, or they can even do it based on how much they lift, which makes it pretty exciting.
That's
But
cool.
yeah, it's we raised over $50,000 last year.
Woo!
And hope to do more this year. So
That's awesome.
yeah, so I mean, that's our biggest fundraiser, I mean, for the year. So that's what really keeps it going. So it's been good.
And it is a really, I was only able to do it the first year. I wasn't able to go last year. I'm hoping to be able to do it this year as well. Is it going to be, it's always in May. Is it going to be in May again this year? Is that right?
Yeah, we haven't locked down the date officially, but we're looking at that, like, mid to late May again.
And there are several things that I thought were really cool about this event. One, it is certainly weightlifting adjacent. The feel of it has there's the back room. There's, you're taking your warm-up attempts. You're trying to figure out, kind of trying to gauge like where you want to open. But the thing that I thought was really neat about this event is, and I don't know, I guess I should ask if you did it in the same place last year that you did it the first year.
Yeah, we did the same place. Yeah, it was great.
It's this, like, it's like a distillery, right? Like,
yeah.
And it's literally like in the back room of a distillery. So you've got people who like just showed up to have their drinks on a Sunday afternoon, and they just like wandered into a very different vibe and a very different environment where, like, there's like windows. It's like a little bit of like a zoo, kind of like, where like people are just like sipping on alcoholic drinks and watching people try to lift a bunch of heavy weight. I love that it is a max clean competition, because I feel like that is, of the 3 things, you got snatch, clean, and the jerk. Like, the clean is like the most raw energy. Like, we're going to just get like wild and doing this stuff. And I also loved that you guys have an appreciation for some of us who don't always who aren't always able to muster the strength and the courage to lift the weight. You guys let me attempt 140, I believe, like 7 or 8 times, and it was
we didn't have too many rolls, Yeah, it was a great time.
It was the saddest thing. Like, every time I would get to the bottom, and I would get it like a quarter of the way out of the bottom, and the whole crowd was like very supportive, and I would inevitably not be able to stand it up. And they're like, "That's okay, try it again." I was like, "It's not going to be any different." But like,
Per Brooks again.
They just like kept throwing me out there, and like,
oh yeah.
Did you eventually stand it up, Steve?
Oh, Abby, absolutely not. I am not. No. But you know what?
I remember this well.
You
It
tried your
was awesome.
best.
And
Yeah.
they massaged my ego sufficiently. So I walked away feeling like I had accomplished something. What? Who knows? But, like it was a good time. It was a great atmosphere. I love the venue. I am hoping, and now I guess I'm going to put public pressure on Brian and the rest of the board. I'm hoping that we can partner with you guys this year to kind of give you guys a little bit more support, like from a even if just from like in the run up to it. And
Yeah,
maybe
that'd be amazing. I mean, I'd love to see some lifters coming. Like most of the lifters were from my team. We had some other folks in the area supporting it. But like really, I mean, it'd be great to see some other lifters come. I mean, it was fun to see all skill levels. I mean, we've had Big Jake do it. Caleb's done it. Jackie's done it. And then, I mean, some folks were within their first few months of lifting. I mean, I had some folks from like our, just from the gym who aren't in our weightlifting program, like come out this past year, and they're doing our, like, we're not a CrossFit affiliate, but do our performance class, as we call it, go from there just to that competition. So, just would love to see some more lifters from the area come on out for it.
Great. One final question before we go, Jake. When was the last time you got a haircut, dude?
Oh man, I get a little trim every now and then. It's I got to keep it looking fresh.
Yeah.
Dude, I've had long hair for over 10 years now, so I don't know if anyone, like, I always joke it's like I should go get like a nice, like a real haircut, and then I could be like an undercover boss situation. Like no one would know who I was. Shave my face maybe, and I think I would be totally anonymous.
I think I may be misremembering this, but in my man on the street interviews at WSO Championships, I believe it was Keisha who referred to you as weightlifting Jesus.
Listen, I'm not going to give that name to myself, but I've.
Oh, sure. But if other people do it, you're not
Brian.
She wouldn't be the first person to say that though. So it is what it is. It's a look, I'm like the stereotypical white Jesus painting, that's got it locked in.
Among the meme shirts, the irreverent meme shirts that Abby's going to create is like a Last Supper, but like WSO style. Like you're going to be at the center of the table, and we're going to have like Choi to your left, Big Jake will be there. We'll get like a table full of people. Like we're going to get in a lot of trouble for this shirt, but it's going to be totally worth it. And I guarantee you people will buy this shirt.
All right,
well,
I'm in.
Legal is in the holiday spirit, so maybe, and it's almost Christmas, so like maybe that'll be an upcoming meme, is Jake Rowell in the nativity scene. I don't know.
I'm ready for it.
I've been pushing the envelope a good bit with Brian. That might be where he draws the line.
Well, Jake, thank you so much for joining us, and good luck to you and all your lifters and all of the other WSO representatives who are going to be out in Tucson this week. We will for sure be promoting you guys. Please tag us in your stories, in your posts. We want to support you guys and show off how well you're going to do. And then obviously in our next show, we will be recapping how great everybody did. But until then, Jake, thank you again. Abby, always great to see you. Everybody have a great day.
See you guys. Thank you.